Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the Flight Deck. And of course, that means some smart talk radios in your future. In this segment, very pleased to have with us University of Kansas film professor and independent filmmaker Bob Hurst. Bob is working on an important new project called The Listeners, which we'll talk to him about in just a minute. And we are very, very pleased, again, to have him here. The Listeners is about what's going on at headquarters, the training of the people that work there, and at similar centers around the country. Should be an interesting talk indeed. Bob, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine, Warner. How are you?
I think we're good here. It's the throes of the summer, and so everybody can either look at that as a wonderful opportunity or you can get maybe a little lethargic in the warm weather. Bob, you and I have talked at some length about this current project, and I really am excited to give this shine some light on what you're doing. Share, if you would. Let's start this. Let's do this. Let's give them a little bit of background about what you do at the University of Kansas, but then let's go right into the current project called The Listeners.
Okay, great. I'm teach in the Film and Media Studies department at the University of Kansas. I've been here for about 8 years, and my area of specialty is in filmmaking, and that is I work with other filmmakers on film projects and work on documentaries and fiction films on my own. And the project I'm working on now is called The Listeners. It's a documentary film about people who volunteer on suicide and crisis hotlines. Primarily, it takes place here in Lawrence, Kansas, but I've also conducted interviews with people who work in crisis centers in Seattle and New York and Los Angeles.
What is it about filmmaking that was intriguing to you from day one, and what got you into it? And again, a lot of people will look at it as, my gosh, it sounds expensive, it sounds tiring, it sounds exhausting, and sounds thankless. But beyond all that, what's great about it?
Well, it's really a storytelling. I think that's what I didn't realize for a few years. I've been an avid movie fan my whole life. I used to go to double features every weekend when I was a kid. Growing up, I started writing capsule reviews for movies when I was a teenager. I never published them. I never put them in the student newspaper, but I was always fascinated. And I think it's the storytelling aspect. It's just a very complex, but also really moving way to be able to tell a story and to be able to connect with people. And that's what interests me the most. Characters really interest me. Types of movies are really interesting, different kinds of movies, science fiction and historical dramas, etc. But it's usually the storytelling and the characters that I really connect to.
We have had a lot of artists, sculptors, actors, actresses, musicians, a lot of which they can do their craft and apply their craft and share it pretty much independently or unilaterally or certainly just as a single person. What you do, does it not require a fair amount of coordination with a lot of other people and a lot of other entities?
Oh, sure, and that's the challenge of it. I mean, if you don't enjoy working with other people, this isn't a great profession for you, because even if you're working, so on this film, I'm working primarily by myself or with an editor, or sometimes I hire a camera operator or another crew person or two on shoots, but mostly this film I've done on my own, but it still requires a lot of interacting with individuals, with the people who are in the film, getting to know them, establishing a level of trust and a relationship. And on other film projects, that goes the same way. You're always working with new people, always striving to establish a level of trust and communication, because it comes out in the film if it's not working between you on the set or in the editing room. It really comes through. You have to have, they say that filmmaking is a relationship business, and it is, in a sense, but not in the way that people understand. It's really about how important trust is in communication and getting the right story up on the screen.
To get funding, to get a lot of the logistics done and the planning, I would think you'd have to step outside the world of the creative and the world of the artiste, so to speak, and sort of the vision that you have for the film, and you have to put on at some level some kind of a business or organization or managerial hat. Is that tough sometimes to switch back and forth, sometimes probably within the same 15-minute period?
Right, it is really difficult, and I feel like on this project, because I'm working mostly on my own, that's what I'm spending most of my time doing is fundraising. But it's an important subject, and if you have the passion for the project, then it doesn't make it a hell of a lot easier, a heck of a lot easier to raise funds, but it makes it you can always be reminded of that, of how important the project is to you. I think with filmmaking, that's a really important thing. It takes so much work in terms of fundraising, and really it is a business. You're creating a product when you're making a film. It takes so much work that you better believe in the product that you're creating and the message that you're going to deliver. That really helps. And with this film, I think it's something that I really believe in, and that makes it a lot easier to approach people and a lot easier to sort of keep focused because this is a very long. The production timeline is very long. It's been about 2 years already. It'll be another 6 months before the film is finished.
If you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio. We're in the midst of a segment talking to Bob Hurst. Bob is a professor of film at the University of Kansas. He's also an independent filmmaker, talking about a brand new project that he is deeply engrossed in right now called The Listeners. The essence of it is exploring the dynamics of suicide call centers, in particular headquarters right here in town. We have had people from headquarters on this show in the past. We are very aware and, quite frankly, editorially speaking, supportive of the kind of work that they do. Bob, you must have found so far, even though it's not done yet, some extraordinary stories over there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what I was I've learned so many things, and this is the great thing about documentary filmmaking is what you learn. I'm not an expert by any means, but I've learned so much about mental health care in the U.S. and suicide prevention, but also about the individuals that participate, that volunteer on these and on these crisis and suicide hotlines. And in this case, it's a bunch of kids. It's a bunch of 19 to 22-year-olds, which really struck me when we started filming, and that is, these are really kids that are fresh out of high school, their first couple of years of college, and they're taking on what is really an incredible burden and responsibility of picking up the phone and not knowing who's going to be on the other end when they answer and what kind of help that person would need. So what I've really been impressed with is just the human spirit in that sense. I mean, the older generations love to pick on the younger generations for whatever reason. I guess that's just what happens. But these are younger kids who really are contributing and really want to help other people, which is great to see.
What kind of, I assume it would be good, but share with us, if you would, the kind of cooperation and understanding that headquarters and some of the other resources that you've been working with have had as you brought sort of the camera, so to speak, behind the scenes.
Well, it took us, we first contacted headquarters in the spring of 2013, and we began, not really negotiations, but we needed to establish a relationship and talk about just what we were interested in doing. And, of course, headquarters wanted to make sure it was something that aligned with what they did, because we didn't want to be a distraction to them. And so it's a lot of work for them just to keep their doors open, as you know, and to keep funded. And what we hope is that this can be a tool for them, as well as something to promote suicide prevention and mental health care in general. But they've been really great in helping set the ground rules for how the filming was going to go, and then encouraging, through their networks, encouraging an awareness of the film so far.
Bob, I would think in documentary filmmaking in particular, you may go in with looking at everything through one lens or one set of perspectives, but as the thing develops, and as you as a filmmaker learn yourself more and more, does it tend to take a little bit of a different direction or take on a different dimension?
Yeah, I think we didn't know when we were going into it. This is what I would call a documentary of discovery, and that is it's not an historical piece, so we're not writing it ahead of time. We're basically going in and filming and then seeing where it goes. And the thing that was interesting to me, and surprising in a really good way, was that the training that the film is mostly about the training that the volunteers undergo in order to answer the begin answering the calls. And the training involves a lot of what's called role-playing, and that is situations where you basically learn how to talk and listen and learn how to help other people. And those are, even though they're role plays, that is, these are just volunteers and trainers talking to each other, they're surprisingly compelling. And I think in a large part that's because we've all sort of gone through or know people who have gone through similar situations. And in a sense, we're watching these role plays happen, but we're also experiencing or re-experiencing it ourselves. So those are really compelling. Those are really interesting, and I wondered if it would be interesting on screen, and it actually is really interesting on screen, at least to me. The process of training is very interesting.
What have you found, and again, to the extent that you have, the filming and or the contact you've had with other centers that are comparable or do similar work to headquarters, do they operate in much the same way? What are you finding in common, or are there differences between them?
Well, I find that there are lots of commonalities. So there's a center in Gainesville, Florida, that's also in a college town that's very similar, but then that's set up very similarly to headquarters, using a lot of students. But then there's also the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline in Lower Manhattan in New York, that's the center for the national line, and that's like a space-aged control center that's very well staffed and run and pretty, I guess, very well funded, which is really great. So there's a lot of differences between sort of local networks and the national networks. There are different concerns for different areas. So, for instance, when I was in Los Angeles, being a cosmopolitan world city, they have I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 different languages spoken at the main center in Los Angeles. Right. So lots of people who are on staff at all times who can help people not just who speak different languages, but different cultures and different cultural issues. Because as you can imagine, the issues that people have a lot to do with the culture they're raised in, the families they're raised in. So that's been very interesting too.
I'm interested just from the pure technique of independent filmmaking. When you go into this, it would have to be at best loosely scripted, I would think, and the layout. Does the length change? Do you go in with a length, so to speak, or sort of a time frame in mind, or does that change as you develop and you start to see the material coming out in front of you?
Yeah, I think this did change. It was really, we knew that we wanted this to center around people who were going through the training at headquarters and then build a story around that. So there are little bits about the history of crisis phone lines, which begin at around 1960 in the U.S. There's a bit about the history of headquarters in Lawrence, which is really fascinating. It begins in late 1969 or early 1970 when there were a lot of things going on in Lawrence. So there are, as far as what the story is, that's continued to change over time. And I'm not sure about, as far as length goes, we're shooting for this to be a feature-length film, and that is around 70 to 72 minutes. And I think that with the sub-stories we're weaving in there about the history of crisis lines and the history of headquarters in Lawrence, I think we have something that'll really hold people. It's very interesting.
So, Bob, when the film is done and it's wrapped up and it's sort of in the can, so to speak, what happens? What's the shelf life, and what's your first move? Does it immediately go out to independent film festivals, or tell us about that process?
Sure. So the major festival deadlines for 2016 begin in late September with the Sundance Festival, and then another major festival called South by Southwest, which is in Austin, Texas, every March. We're shooting for those, even though for every independent filmmaker those are long shots, we're just shooting for those to provide ourselves with a good deadline, and also, of course, we think we're going to get in. We wouldn't apply otherwise. But even if we don't, it gives us a good deadline to shoot for, and then we'll continue to play at festivals, or we'll begin to play at festivals in early 2016, and then the film will be offered for broadcast to public television stations in the region. So hopefully in Kansas City and Wichita and Topeka, they'll play the film. And then after that, it will be available and hopefully in libraries and educational institutions. So we think it can be a good educational tool to begin conversations about mental health care and suicide prevention. Headquarters will also be showing the film at least once, maybe twice, as a fundraiser this fall. So that'll be the first opportunity to see the picture, to see the film locally when it's finished.
Well, the work is called The Listeners. It is being produced, directed, acted, narrated, funded, managed, produced, and maybe you'll even do a red carpet walk with the thing by a very, very talented guy, Bob Hurst, a professor of film at the University of Kansas. But what I think is going to be an interesting and important new work called The Listeners, based around, again, the work that's done and the training that's done locally here at headquarters and at similar facilities across the country. Bob, how can people find out even more? Or if they want to follow the project, how can they do that and learn a little bit more?
Well, our website is listenersmovie.com. And also there's a Facebook page called Listeners Movie 2, and that has all the most recent happenings. I'm working with an editor right now, so we're posting pictures and little clips from the film as we go along in the editing. It's actually a great way to sort of see behind the scenes how the film is being put together as we go. So we're sort of discovering, it's a chance for people to sort of get to see the film and discover what the film is about as we go along, just like myself and the editor are.
Well, best of luck to you, and thanks for putting the thing together. I think it's going to be an important, interesting story for everybody to see and learn more, and would love to have you back on again.
Thank you, Warner.
You bet. We'll be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.